Let's see. Yeah, so everybody, the consensus seems to be more videos. Faraday speaks. Did he do a video about us, or he just wanted me to react to? Oh, yeah, here we go. Yeah, he did a couple of videos about us. What a bitch.
Hey guys, Faraday here. So today I wanted to make a video addressing some of the criticism.
Hey guys, Faraday here. Yeah, okay, bitch.
Hey guys, Faraday here.
Hey, bitch here. Hey, bitch Nibba here. Hey, yo, faggot here. That's what you might as well have said. Retard
hey guys, here. So today I wanted to make...
Yeah, that's what you might as well have said. Funny? Hello, funny? What is that, a spider? Or is that just, that's just dust. Okay.
Hey guys, Faraday here. So today I wanted to
What's going on with your hair, dude? What is going on with your hair? Also, nice background here. Oh, yeah, you've really... Why is it? Why doesn't it cover the whole wall? Oh, wow, you've got your whole thing set up nice. Have you ever seen what a straight line looks like? Are you capable of setting things up in a straight line? Do you possess a level in your home, a level device? These are all squeezed together. There's a little bit of a space here, but over here it's... And over here it's tilted. I'm placing, placing things on my wall. Placing squares on my wall. I've got... I wonder how we put those on the wall with those command strips, right? Those adhesive strips.
A video addressing some of the criticism that I received on my last video where Nick Fuentes...
Oh, we gotta watch the other one. We gotta watch the other one first.
Hey guys, Faraday here.
Hey, so bitch here. Hey, it's me, bitch again. Oh, wow, nice. He's got the V for Vendetta, very nice. Looks like a broken lamp. By the way, this is all, wow, what a room here. Really well put together room. We've got a brown bookshelf, old bookshelf, black wood lamp, wall space, empty wall space, different color wood desk, shoddy desk. Some kind of black and blue color combination on the wall. What's going on, big man? Let's try to clean our room, shall we? There's a television behind him. Clean the room. This is a disaster zone. You should see my office. My office is amazing. I've got shelves. My desk matches the shelves. I've got nice picture frames. I've got the walls. There's coverage on the wall. My room is ordered. This room is a disaster.
Just wanted to talk about the recent events with Nick Fuentes and Turning Points USA. So what happened was Nick Fuentes showed up at a Turning Points USA event called Culture War. And at that event, he was highly critical of Israel.
That's not at all... What? Dude, do you even know what happened? This event is not called Culture War. The tour is called Culture War. I didn't show up to any of the Culture War tour events. I showed up to Politicon. When I went to Politicon, I didn't talk about Israel. I tried to get a picture with Charlie Kirk. I didn't even know what the fuck happened.
Immigration and conservative stances on the LGBT community. After a chain of events, Nick Fuentes was booted from the convention and went to social media and to his platform to rile up his base and essentially start a war against the conservative movement. And this all...
That is just not what happened. What a dummy. What is this, like the telephone game? Nick Fuentes went to the Culture War convention and he talked about immigration and Israel, and then he got kicked out, and then he started a war against... No! Wrong. That is not at all what happened. That's not at all how it happened. What an idiot.
All culminated in an AMA where Rob Smith and Charlie Kirk defended themselves against a swarm of groypers asking questions ranging from everything from 9/11 conspiracy theories involving the Jews to the effects of immigration to whether or not they were actually conservatives and actually Christians for supporting the LGBT movement. From my perspective, Charlie and Rob were a bit taken aback and overwhelmed by the questions. I don't think that they were prepared for anything like that at all.
Yeah.
And the movement online has only since become emboldened by the AMA and been used as evidence that the conservative movement is not working within the best interest of conservatives. Nick's criticisms of Charlie Kirk have essentially been him calling him a grifter and saying that Charlie is more concerned with money and fame than he is with actually building out a conservative movement that represents conservative people. You know, personally, in terms of Nick, I'd always kind of underestimated the dude. I watched the debates he did with Destiny, I've watched some of his content before, and I never really thought much of the guy. I thought he was just, you know, another right-wing grifter or just another right-wing personality that didn't really need to be taken that seriously. But I think recent events have kind of shown otherwise. Nick's position within the far right has actually been pretty interesting if you look at it. He's positioned himself, what he's done essentially is position himself between the very extremes of the far right and between the conservative movement, acting as almost a springboard. Whereas someone like Stefan Molyneux or Lawrence Southern dog whistle a lot to the far right, Nick is a much more direct intermediary where he can funnel people from conservative movement into ethno-nationalism, white nationalism, which
wrong.
Nick is a self-avowed white nationalist.
I am not self-avowed. Self-avowed means you say that you're whatever. I am not a self-avowed white nationalist.
Be a springboard from softer ideologies into more extreme ideologies much more quickly, and to be honest, much more honestly than a figure like Molyneux or Southern. The reason he's had to position himself in the middle is for a couple reasons. So with the alt-right, they really didn't take him in. I mean, from what I understand, it was because his name, Fuentes, and the fact that he shares Hispanic heritage. And from what I understand, the conservative movement didn't really want anything to do with him.
Well, that's wrong. The alt-right, first of all, the alt-right did want me, if you remember. They tried to bring me on board. You know, Richard Spencer came on the Nationalist Review podcast to try to smooth things over. You know, all these different people. There was at no point did anybody say, oh, he can't be alt-right because he's Mexican. You know, Richard Spencer said I was white. Jared Taylor said I was white. You know, the list goes on and on. So that has never been a point of contention. It was never an issue of not being wanting to be but not being accepted. It was always an issue of you're degenerates, you're retards, whatever. So the guy's just making things up. Everything in this video is wrong. It's just factually wrong. Self-avowed white nationalists. People have a problem with my heritage in the alt-right. You know, the convention, the culture war convention, AMA, everything in this is just factually wrong.
Because of his ties to white nationalism and because of his criticisms of Israel, which are very much a no-no within the conservative movement. So because of this positioning, he's become a very unique figure. Now, interestingly, another figure that was at the AMA was Patrick Casey, who is the head of the American Identity Movement. Now, if you've been paying attention for long, you know that the American Identity Movement is a rebranding of Identity Europa, a neo-Nazi organization, essentially, that was very active at Charlottesville and was very active during the Trump campaign. They eventually saw a rebranding and took a big hit after Charlottesville because it was shown that they had leaked Discord messages showing a lot of their anti-Semitism, a lot of their racism,
This is
and
all
their true intentions.
all factually wrong. First of all, they didn't rebrand. Identity Europa dissolved in February, and Patrick Casey started AIM. And the reason they did that is because, you know, IE was not Patrick's organization. Patrick was a part of it. He was selected to take over it. It was not recoverable, so they disbanded that. They started AIM. Beyond that, they didn't disband because of the leaks. The leaks came after AIM was launched. they had decided not with no without the leaks in mind, they had decided to dissolve IE. The leaks came after the launch of AIM, so the timeline is off.
Patrick Casey and the American Identity Movement have always been part of this optics debate within the far right, which is, do we be self-avowed white nationalists and be very on the nose about it? And this would be the Richard Spencer and the Mike Enoch camp. Or do we concern ourselves with optics? And do we try to redress our movement? Do we try to paint ourselves as patriot? And do we try to co-opt the conservative movement to fit our needs, to push our message, and to embolden our numbers? And that's really what I see this new allegiance between the Patrick Caseys and the Nick Fuenteses as being. And now, instead of turning their attention to the left and attacking the left, they're really starting to turn their attention to the conservative movement. My concern is that it's going to be...
This is wrong. This is just mischaracterizing the optics debate. The optics debate was not simply about how we're going to dress. The optics debate was never about misleading people about our views. We are significantly different from the alt-right, Richard Spencer, Michael Enoch, in a lot of ways, which I outlined on the show this week. You could talk about religion, where we differ, talk about this ethno-state idea, we are against it, they're in favor of it. Gun control, Richard Spencer supports. He's a globalist, he believes America is over, and we should embrace this transnational, post-American vision. He's essentially a globalist. We're nationalistic, we think America's going to persist, and so on. So there's not insignificant differences. The point was, as dissident rightists, what are we going to try to do? We have to present ourselves well. We have to choose our words carefully. Because the argument from these people was, you shouldn't care about how you look. Whatever you say, they're going to call you alt-right. And our argument was, well, we're not alt-right. And if we have the right presentation, people won't believe we're alt-right, right? When the media slanders us, right-wing people, normal people, if we have the right look, they're not going to buy into the dishonesty, right? They won't buy into the smear. It's a lot easier because they said, it's futile for you to try to differentiate because no matter what, you'll be considered the worst. And we said, that's not true. If we look the part of what we're advancing, then, like others, we'll have some degree of, what would you say, credibility. So this is a mischaracterization.
Successful. I think that they're going to see a lot of success with pulling conservatives into the far right through this method, because essentially what they're doing is, first of all, they're using a lot of tactics that they use against the left. They're using gaslighting. They're using name calling. They've taken to calling the conservative movement Conservative Inc., saying that they are only concerned with money and these things. And while I could see some truth to that, it's the same type of name calling and branding that we saw Donald Trump do.
He concedes it's true, but then he's like, well, it's name calling. Well, it's true, though, but you concede it's true.
And I think it's a tactic that Trump really, helped people focus on within the far right. And so now they're basically taking all those tactics that the conservative movement had created and turning it against them and pulling people into a new movement that is much further to the right and has direct ties to white nationalism. And also what they're doing is they're painting...
There are no direct ties to white nationalism. Nobody in our Groiper thing is tied to white nationalism at all.
The conservatives as cringy and as out of touch and not relevant with the younger generations. Nick Fuentes's fan base is largely Zoomers. So my concern and what I see happening is that they will be successful in this. And
they will be.
While the alt-right continues to dissolve in post-Charlottesville drama, the optics movement
People are
is
saying
rising.
they want me to skip this guy. You asked for him, and now you're saying you want me to skip him. All right, we can skip. Yeah, this guy doesn't even know what he's talking about, so we can skip. 10,000 views. Dotard. So, you say... JF. You want JF. Asked for gaming. JF. Brandon Tatum. Secular Talks. The Brandon Tatum video I don't want to watch. I saw like 2 seconds of it. I'm like, this is just too low IQ. It's even lower IQ than Elijah Schaffer, if you can believe it. JF, I don't know. JF's stream is probably pretty long, too. And he's more boring than this guy. JF is slow, and it's probably worse. Kyle Kalinski's video I saw, it's just more of the same. He just says, oh, they're alt-right. He hardly even talks about us. Yeah, no, I'm not talking about, I'm not watching secular talks. I'm not watching JF. I'm not watching this guy. Watch this guy. All right, I'll watch the second video.
Been having his groypers go into TPUSA events and causing a lot of disruption, asking a lot of very edgy, controversial questions, and causing the conservatives to kind of go into a frenzy. Now, I said some things in that video that were apparently untrue, and then apparently I got the timeline a little mixed up. Now, the timeline I'm not super concerned about because my audience isn't super concerned about that event. We just kind of want the rough overdraft. But one of the things that I said in there that apparently was not true is that what Nick Fuentes is a white nationalist.
There's music in this video, so I gotta...
Apparently, Nick Fuentes disavows white nationalism and does not consider himself a white nationalist. And
True.
Despite me knowing that Nick is half Latino, I could have swore that he was a white nationalist.
Quarter.
To be honest with
I'm
you.
a quarter. I'm a quarter. This guy says he knows things. I'm not half Latino. I'm a quarter Mexican.
And that's kind of the problem with these far-right groups now, is the overlap between them becomes so blurred that it becomes hard to tell who's who. And then
No, it's because people like you fucking lie. He's like, oh, I thought he was a white nationalist, but I was wrong. And the problem is that they're all just so closely connected. The problem is people like you fucking lie. You know, it's people like Jared Holt, who I think Jared Holt talked to this guy. Maybe I'm wrong. But the problem is people like you use that to label everybody who's got a problem with demographics as a white nationalist. So, no, the problem is not that we are too closely together. It's that you don't do your research. You know, people like you lie about us. Yeah, it's almost like calling everyone a white nationalist is, dishonest and would cause problems with understanding.
On top of that, a lot of these groups, a lot of the people within these movements are just straight up liars and they're not honest about their positions in the first place. I mean, one only needs to look at the recent stream on Adam Friended and PSA Sitch where No Bullshit came on and try to tell people that he'd never heard of the alt-right, white nationalism wasn't a real thing, and that he's never been a white nationalist or alt-right or alt-light. And for anybody that hasn't seen that stream, I suggest go checking it out. Now, of course, Nick does talk about wanting the country to remain majority European. Demographic shifts are undeniably something that he talks about all the time, and it was one of the main questions asked during the TPUSA events. Now, of course, the question becomes, do those demographic shifts really matter? Now, I'm sure if you're afraid of people voting Democrat, sure, I guess that's an existential threat to you. But in terms of the country actually falling apart because we have non-white people coming in, I'm just going to call bullshit on that. If you've ever spent time in minority communities, you're going to know that these aren't like the destitute, horrible conditions that everybody tries to make them out to be. Of course there's problem communities. Of course there's crime-ridden communities. And of course, you know, there's always going to be problems with this in terms of immigration. And these are problems we have to work on. But for the most part, when you meet immigrants, they're hardworking people. They contribute a lot to the country in terms of culture, in terms of labor. It's a net gain on GDP.
No,
and
it's
if
not.
You're worried-
No, it's not. Wrong. All of this is wrong. They're committing a higher proportion. You know, all this, of course they bring crime. Yeah, well, they bring more of it. And this is statistically proven. And, so I don't even know what the point of this is. They contribute to, excuse me, they're a net benefit to GDP. Yeah, barely, right? We did the math on this with the Ben Shapiro video. The short run surplus economically from immigration is $2.1 trillion. And out of that, the benefit that goes to immigrants is $2.05 trillion. So the total net gain to the GDP is $50 billion, which is nothing in the grand scheme of things. $50 billion in an economy which is $20 trillion, right? So you do the math on that. 50 out of 20 trillion, right? And beyond that, when you factor in the long-term fiscal impact per immigrant, which is $119,000, 119,000 times 60 million, I mean, that completely drowns out the 50 billion. Divide the 50 billion by the 300 million people in the country. You know, if there's 300 million people in the country, would be what? So that would mean that there would be $150 per person. So the total gain to GDP for native peoples is roughly $150 per person. $50 billion in a country of 300 million people. That's the benefit to GDP. $150 per person is the net gain in GDP. Seriously, that's the benefit? And, you know, destroy the social fabric, destroy the cohesiveness of the nation, the tradition and all that for 150 per person. You could literally just work a few hours overtime if everyone did that, and it'd be the equivalent, right?
About the kind of after effects of that, well, then that's why we need, that's why we need good taxation to redistribute the gains from some of these companies that benefit from immigration the most. Now, to me, a lot of these quote-unquote distinctions between the groypers and the alt-right inevitably are just irrelevant. When you're looking at a group of people that spread anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, when you're looking at a figurehead like Fuentes, which goes on his show and tells Holocaust denial jokes, I don't see the big difference
Scare quotes. Oh, I guess it was a joke. Yeah, it was a joke. Dotard.
between them and the alt-right. I really don't. Why? Because they're not self-proclaimed white nationalists?
Also,
because
yeah, here and then this now. He's like, oh, well, the differences are relevant. They're anti-Semitic, just like the alt-right, so stupid. I just went over all the differences. If you watched my fucking show, you would know the differences. You know, like not being in favor of kicking out all the non-white people, kind of a big difference, right? You know, Richard Spencer says we need a peaceful ethnic cleansing, and us saying it's probably not going to happen, like, or shouldn't happen. Kind of a big difference.
they're not out and out about it. I mean, this to me just doesn't matter all that much.
You are racially aware. So I was wondering,
It looks so handsome in
what
this
is your
video.
position
Look
on...
at this perfect physiognomy here. Chad physiognomy. For some reason, I looked really good in this. I don't know why. Maybe it was the angle of my camera or something. Sometimes I look like shit on camera. Sometimes I look really good. I can't really place it.
What constitutes your identity and what constitutes the best form of identitarianism that a society can pursue?
And by the way,
right?
this is from, I want to say this is from April 2018. So this is over a year ago.
No.
Sure, that's a great question. Yeah, I was talking about that earlier today because, of course, there was a big hit piece about me in Right Wing Watch by Jared Holt. We're all a big fan of Jared Holt around here because I attended the American Renaissance Conference this weekend. And, you know, the reason I wouldn't call myself a white nationalist, it's not because I don't see the necessity for white people to have a homeland and for white people to have a country. It's because I think that kind of terminology is used almost exclusively by the left to defame. And I think the terminology and the labels that we use, I don't think we can look at them outside of the context of their connotations in America. Whereas maybe it might be descriptive to call somebody a white nationalist. I think it sort of loses something when an average person hears that and it's almost synonymous with Nazi or villain or whatever. And so I would say I'm a white person. I'm conscious of my white identity, conscious of nationalism. But I think in a way it's almost redundant to say that you're a white nationalist. We know that the word nation almost implicitly talks about ethnicity and biology. If you go back to the history of the word, a nation is not synonymous with country or state. Nation itself means a people. So I think if I call myself a nationalist, it's almost implicit in that word that it's, well, you know, America does have a heritage of being a European country. So that a little bit about the wording, because I know a lot of people would be confused by that, but that's really how I see myself.
Now, to me, this distinction...
This is exactly right. I don't know how anybody could watch that and be confused about the view. Which is to say that white nationalists, as I said in that clip, and I was so right, so smart, so handsome, so young too. That's when I was 19. I was 19 in that video, right? Yeah, because I'm 21 now. So it was April 2018. Yeah, I was 19. So old now, right? I'm such an old man. But that's exactly right. The word white nationalist, if the connotation is Nazi, whatever, the purpose of that term is to defame somebody and make them less credible or legitimate, it loses all its denotative meaning, right? It has no, words like racist, white supremacist, white nationalist, they have only connotations. They have no denotation. Nobody can tell me exactly what these words mean. Nobody can tell me what is a neo-Nazi, what is a white nationalist, what is a white supremacist, what is a racist. Now, people have their ideas of the connotations. What is the connotation of a racist? Prejudice, discriminatory, something along those lines, bigoted. But what is the word racist? What is the denotation? There is none. Nobody can tell me objectively the definition of this word. There's no content to this word in itself. There's this idea of hatred or race or maybe white people, but there is no specific, precise, denotative definition. And the same is true with white nationalists. What does that mean? Does that mean there should be a white nation somewhere? Does that mean America should be a white nation? Does that mean that America was a white nation? Does that mean that America should have a white nation inside of it? Or what does that mean? Nobody can tell me. If white nationalist means you think there should be an ethno-state, then I'm not a white nationalist. Why do they keep calling me one then, right? It's because I talk about white people and I talk about white identity. You can say I'm a white identitarian. That's descriptive. And a word about the word nation, it's to say that a nationalist, intrinsically in this word, there is something about heritage. It doesn't mean, again, a nationalist is not the same as the scare word, which only has connotations. And I said, maybe there's a definition of white nationalist that is an ethno-state or something like that. But there's something intrinsic in nationalist, in the word nation, that there's an ethnic component. Now, that does not necessitate that we create a white nation or we kick out all the non-whites, or you can only be white to be in the country. But it means that part of a country, at least on some level, maybe for the majority of the people, is shared ancestry in some capacity. A shared people, a shared experiences, shared history, which was the point of that video. But let's see what he has to say about it.
And that the Groypers are trying to draw between themselves and the white nationalists, the alt-right, to me, it really doesn't matter that much. The inevitable end game of their policies will be white nationalism. It will be locking down the borders and ensuring that only Europeans come in, which they are going to classify as white people. It's also the reason the distinctions don't matter to me that much is because they spread all this.
So and this is just so irresponsible. Oh, well, the differences don't matter because they get white nationalism. Oh, because we were both against immigration? Seriously? Ann Coulter's against immigration. There are liberals that are against immigration. Up until 10 years ago, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, liberals used to fight in favor of immigration restriction. Well, they're all white nationalists because they're all going to end up supporting immigration restriction. That's just so stupid. That is just so stupid. And of course the distinction is, moreover, that a white nationalist ban, deplatform, blah, 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 no matter what they say, and not, you don't get that. So
same conspiracy theories as the alt-right does. They talk about white replacement. They talk about white genocide.
So does the Washington Post. So does the New York Times. Replacement is not controversial. Replacement is something acknowledged by everybody in the press. When we say it, it's a conspiracy theory. When we say, and it's mathematic. It's arithmetic, right? The idea that white people in this country have lower fertility rates than non-white people, and that immigration is almost all non-white. Bloomberg called it demographic refreshment. Okay, do you see the dishonesty here? Well, white replacement is a right-wing conspiracy theory. But demographic refreshment, in other words, we're going to make up for the decline in the white population due to low white fertility rates with immigration and high non-white fertility rates. We're replacing the population. Those that should have been born as white will be replaced by immigrants. But the differences don't matter, right? New York Times says Virginia went blue because of mass immigration. New York Times says Georgia will eventually go blue because non-whites are replacing whites in Georgia, in, you know, the southern states, mid-Atlantic states. It's conspiracy theory. White genocide, conspiracy theory. It's happening.
They talk, you know, they go on Holocaust denial rants. Nick likes to make jokes on his stream where he talks about cookies and ovens and 6 million Jews. So to me, I don't see why these distinctions matter at all.
That's
we saw
just
the same
so
thing.
fucking stupid, dude. So stupid and so irresponsible. Only no differences, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, Christians. Well, some Christians believe in the Catholic Church, and some don't, and some speak in tongues, and some, you know, worship Amazonian pagan gods. It's all the same. Differences don't matter. Really? Muslims are all the same. You know, some believe in, you know, they're followers of Ali, right? Shia Ali is what I think it comes from, right? Followers of Ali. Some are Sunni. You know, some believe in this 12th Imam. Some, you know, whatever. Some are Wahhabists. But it's all the same. It's lazy and irresponsible, and it's just plain wrong. You're just dumb.
With the
and you're wrong.
alt-right. You know, they came out talking about how they're not white nationalists, they're not white supremacists, they're just identitarians, and they just want to talk about the issues. And
That's so stupid. That's so, yes, we are identitarians, and we do just want to talk. And it's like all these words. It's like, well, they deny that they're white supremacists. Who would claim that they're a white supremacist? Well, they deny that they're rapists. They deny that they're murderers. Well, yeah, we're not. And if you do claim to be one of those things, there's big consequences, right?
they just want a place for white people, and they just, all this bullshit, all this nonsense. And so I'm not really buying it from the Groypers either. We saw the same thing with the alt-right. They tried to dress themselves up as identitarians and the true egalitarians.
That's not what they tried.
They tried to play the optics game too, throwing on suits. And honestly, I'm not buying it from the Groypers.
It's not suits. It has nothing to do with suits, obviously. It has to do with not marching with NSM, right, and TWP, because those people are retarded. It's just like, I can't take it.
Because you guys are younger and more vibrant and fresher. It's the same, it's just a slap of paint on the same old beater card. It's no different. Now, obviously, with the alt-right, this whole fresh coat of paint inevitably peeled off whenever they were faced with Charlottesville. And in the aftermath of that event, they were revealed for who they are. The mask came off. And this perverse form of respectability politics that they've been trying to play, people weren't buying it anymore. People saw right through it. And it's going to happen the same thing with the Groyper movement. You guys are going to be exposed for who you really are. You're going to be exposed for basically anti-Semitic neo-Nazi. And that's basically the ideology that you're revitalizing. You can call it paleoconservatism. You can call it whatever you want.
Okay, yeah, well, this guy's a radical progressive, and he's a pedophile, and he's just going to be exposed as a pedophile. It's only a matter of time. This respectability politics where he dresses up in his shirt, and, you know, what's really the difference? You're just like Vice promoting pedophilia. You know, you're left-wing. Left-wing people promote pedophilia. And, you know, you're a pedophile. So it's only a matter of time. You dress up, and you say you're not, but you are, and I don't really see the difference. And, you know, you say you're okay with LGBT, but pedophilia is there, so, you know, you're a pedophile. I mean, that's basically what's going on.
You're peddling the same conspiracies, the same overlapping beliefs. So I'm not buying it. Nobody I know buys it. And just because
probably
Nick
everyone you know is retarded,
call himself a white nationalist doesn't mean that implicitly he isn't. For anybody though that considers themselves alt-right and you still want to argue about whether or not Richard Spencer is anti-Semitic or whether or not he's just a rebranding of a neo-Nazi, I just wanted to actually play that clip for you, that recent clip of him. And so for anybody watching this that is a bit sensitive, maybe you might want to fast forward through this video a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna skip this for he's doing a joke moment.
All right, just kidding. Here's the real footage.
This guy's just like retarded.
Branding that Nick's just you guys. For you guys in the chat, I got a couple questions. First of all, do you really buy this branding that Nick's just an American nationalist? Do you really? Look at who Nick associates himself with. He associates himself with groups like the American Identity Movement, which is the rebranding of identity.
Do you really think he's an American nationalist? Do you really believe that? Look who he associates with. He says he's an American nationalist, but he associates with the American Identity Movement? An American nationalist with the American Identity Movement. Yeah, that's so weird.
Identity Europa, which is a neo-Nazi organization which was active in
That is a
Charlottesville.
lie.
We had a recent member, her name was Samantha, a former, come out of that movement and talk about, the nature of that organization. Do you guys really buy this stuff? Do you really believe this stuff? Or are we going to need a Charlottesville 2.0 where we have another release of Nick going on some crazy rant because you all decided to rally some protest and then someone gets killed? Are we going to need a Charlottesville 2.0 to wake a lot of you groypers up to what you're actually involved in? Or are you guys going to be honest about it? Okay, second question. Do you guys
This guy's just low IQ is what it is. This guy's just got, like, caved-in brain. So, yeah, I mean, it's just like the alt-right. What, are we going to have another rally where you go to Charlottesville and someone dies and then a rant comes out? And it's like, Charlottesville, really? Like, you really need... This is just like the stupidest. You guys told me to watch this. Why would you make me watch this? There's nothing to be said about this. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Stupid, lazy, uninformed, irresponsible. Everything about this is just wrong.
You're a part of a hate group. Do you think you're part of a hateful movement? And if you don't, can you explain to me why you're not a part of a hate?
Yeah, like... I tell you, half the people that came up to me at Politicon were not white. Half the people that came up to me at Politicon to say, I love your show, can I get a picture, were non-white. Black, Mexican, Asian. And that's not to say like, oh, like my best friend is black. But it is to say, how is it a hateful movement? Number one, if we don't advance hatred. And number two, if the message resonates with people that we purport to hate. If we hated people, how come at Houston on Thursday, we had some Mexican who was the child of an illegal and illegal immigrant come up and say, yeah, you're not America first, you're not Christian, whatever. And the guy that came after him was black. Some like 6'3" black guy comes up. Really? If it was a hateful movement, those are the people we're supposed to hate? They're out there like groypers? And anyway, nowhere, and I'm so sick of this hate. Well, nobody fucking hates anybody. We disagree with you. That doesn't mean we hate anybody. You don't have to hate people to say that mass immigration is a bad idea. 60 million immigrants in 60 years. Anybody who's against that, oh, they just what? Hate minorities? Really? That's the only reason you would oppose that? How about we fill up your house with minorities, right? How about we go to Humboldt Park in Chicago and we go to a little village in Chicago, and we get we get one of those Mercedes vans, and we fill it up with, people from the South Side and the West Side, and we go to your house, and we let, 24 strangers who are in the most violent neighborhoods in the country, and we'll just let them stay at your house. And let's see how you like it. And what? If you oppose that, you hate everyone, you hate them because of their skin, you hate them for who they are? Really? I mean, that's what it comes down to. I don't hate anybody. We love everybody, but we just love them where they are. Why can't they just stay where they are? We cannot help them here. They will come here. They're going to run up the expenses, right? They're going to destroy the social and cultural fabric of the country. Why does this have to happen? Everybody who's opposed to this just hates everybody? What about if we just love the way our country is? We can't defend our country? We can't value those things? You value the way things are, the social and cultural fabric? That means you hate everyone else? What a stupid thing to say. It's like in Africa. If they oppose colonialism, they hate white people, right? These Africans, wow, they're so hateful. We're just trying to go over there and steal all their resources and, subjugate them, and they oppose us. They must hate us. They just must be prejudiced against Europeans. Or like Native Americans, right? We come and set up shop in North America. They start scalping people and chopping off heads. Wow, they're real haters. They're real racists. We're just trying to have our own way of life here on the continent. And this is not anything you haven't heard before. It's not anything new or anything that isn't obvious, but I'm just so sick of it. Enough with this insanity. Hate. We're hope against hate. Hatred. Blah, blah, blah. Nobody hates anybody. When I come on my show, it's not a message of hatred. It's a message of we love our country the way it is, and we're defending it. And all these people, this guy I think lives in West Virginia. So, why don't you go live in Tijuana? Why don't you go live in San Jose? Why don't you go live in the epicenter of where this is happening? You love the immigration so much. If we're full of hate and you're so full of love, come to Chicago. And I will go down 290 and we'll get off on Sacramento. And we'll drive through West Garfield Park where the shooting rate is 400. And we'll drive through that neighborhood where the murder rate is 120. We'll go there at dusk on the weekend with the car doors unlocked. Okay? We'll stop and get gas at 8 o'clock in Garfield Park on a Saturday. And then you tell me who is the hater and who's the lover and all this stuff. I'm pretty sure you're going to turn alt-right very quickly in that situation. I'm sure. Right? Because that's always how it goes.
Next two questions. If you were a member of the alt-right, do you think the alt-right was justified? And now, conversely, if you're a member of the Groyper movement, do you think the Groyper movement is justified? At what lengths are you going to go to preserve demographics? Are you willing to use violence? Are you willing to roll back people's civil rights? What measures will you take in order to preserve the demographics of your country? If you're not willing to go on some mass violent spree or implement laws which would reel back the liberty of citizens, what measures could we take? What other solutions are there? Finally, regarding all this stuff with Israel, is it possible to criticize Israel without going in a comment section and posting anti-Semitic slurs, calling people Jew boys, calling people plants by Mossad, and going off on weird 9/11 conspiracies? Is it possible?
Weird. It's not a conspiracy theory, dipshit. It was in the Freedom of Information Act, right? Have you ever see this? When he says, obviously this guy didn't Google dancing Israelis, because if he did, he would find the Freedom of Information Act request that showed official government documents talking about dancing Israelis. I love when they do this. Oh, weird conspiracy theories. If anybody bothered to look at the facts of any of these things, they would find out it's not weird and it's not theories. It's facts, and there's nothing weird about it, right? Dancing Israelis. Oh, yeah, it's a weird conspiracy theory. I guess the federal government was in on it, right? Because they did all the reports for it, right? NYPD did all the reports. FBI has pictures of it. They must be engaged in a willful deception then, right? They must be engaged in this willful, weird conspiracy theory thing. I was actually just watching a documentary about 9/11. It was called The New Pearl Harbor. I encourage everybody to check it out. It's 5 hours. I got about an hour into it. First half hour is a little weak. First 20 minutes or so is a little weak, but it starts to present some real evidence. You should see what happened on 9/11, man. Like, on 9/11, they were running like this huge drill for the Air Force, so that there were only 4 fighter jets in the whole northeastern part of the United States that were available to defend the country. 4 fighter jets to defend the whole northeastern corridor of the country, or quadrant of the country. So that's Chicago, D.C., New York, Boston, most of the Midwest and the East Coast. 4 fighter jets, because they had this big military drill the day of. And they say that drill interfered with their readiness. They said that if you looked at the chain of command for scrambling fighter jets, and I only got so far in the documentary, so I don't have everything, but they said if you look at the chain of command for, how they would respond to a civilian airliner being hijacked, it's like almost everybody involved in the chain of command, from, seeing a civilian airliner deviating from their course to scrambling fighter jets, like one of these guys was on vacation. One of these guys was like literally a day one rookie, and on and on. So there's just so much weird stuff going on there. the explanations don't make sense, doesn't add up. They say that, oh, the airliners turned off their transponders so they can't track them. Well, it turns out that actually you can track a plane without the transponder. You just don't know the altitude necessarily. They said that, oh, well, they were just incompetent, when all this happened. It's like, well, why did they schedule a drill for this day? And so anyway, all this is to say, it's an interesting documentary. You should check it out. A friend of mine recommended it to me. All this is to say, it's not really relevant even to the video, but it's like weird conspiracy theories. Nothing weird about them. Conspiracy theories, just like white nationalist. It's another one of these made-up words that only exists through connotations to discredit ideas that the mainstream doesn't like. They're conspiracy facts, not conspiracy theories. Right? Like Jeffrey Epstein. 9 months ago, that was a conspiracy theory that Jeffrey Epstein was running a pedophile, human trafficking ring, and he was in bed with different world governments and, big finance people and Hollywood celebrities, until we found out it was all true, right? But that was a conspiracy theory, even though everybody knew about this. The Lolita Express, the island, conspiracy theory, which means tinfoil hat, not serious, not credible. Shut him down. But we all know it's true. And the same is true with dancing Israel. Can you criticize Israel without engaging in weird conspiracy theories? You mean the Freedom of Information Act request, which shows official government documents that say that there were Israelis dancing on rooftops that seemed to be prepared? In other words, had prior knowledge of the attacks? And were filming it and were celebrating and were arrested and seen by police officers and witnesses? You mean that theory? That wacky, outlandish theory? I mean, I guess it's weird why our closest ally would, that they might have prior knowledge, but give me a break, dude.
Criticize Israel without engaging in all that stuff? Is it possible to be on the left and criticize Israel? Because I see people on the left that criticize Israel all the time. And so do you need all this neo-Nazi baggage to criticize policies that Israel has or to criticize the foreign aid that we give to the government of Israel? Question. I know that was a lot of questions, but if you're watching this and you're in the Groyper movement or you're an alt-righter, please rewind the video and jot down your answers in the comment section below, and I'll read them, and then maybe we can even correspond. And then my final question is for Nick directly. So if any of you Groypers can send this video to him, please do. But Nick, why don't you call out all this anti-Semitism in your comment section, in your live chats? Why do you make these jokes? Because if I was running a YouTube channel, and I know you guys like to talk about the drag kid all the time, that drag kid Desmond all the time, whose parents are exploiting him. I know you guys like to talk about that all the time. And as someone who's on the left, I don't support that. I think it's disgusting, and I think that they are using him.
Oh, well, we don't care that you say that. Yeah, we don't care that you say that. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You're the same as them, dude. The differences really don't matter because you're left-wing and they're left-wing, and you support LGBT and they support LGBT. So the differences don't matter to me because both of them end up supporting pedophilia eventually. So, you might support that implicitly, even though you say you don't. Do you see the fucking problem, retard? This guy, the whole video, he says, yeah, like, Nick Fuentes and the alt-right are the same. Even though he says they're not, and there are differences, well, I mean, ultimately they aren't. And even if he denies it, implicitly he is, and blah, blah, blah. But he says, well, but, I'm different than these guys, and I think that's bad, so why don't you call out your guys? It's like, because every time we do call that out, you just say, we don't believe you, you're all the same.
Him in a very exploitative way to make money. They're taking him into strip clubs and different venues and quite honestly sexualizing him, and I don't agree with that. And if I saw people in my comment section doing that, talking about that or making jokes about that, or if I saw people in my comment section making guillotine memes, if I had an exorbitant amount of communists, for example, accelerationist communists in my channel that were, making memes like that and jokes like that and going on to other people's comment threads and making jokes like that, I'd get rid of those people. I'd call those people out. And so, Nick, why don't you call the Nazis out in your chat? Why don't you call them out when they're talking about reading seed? Why don't you call them out when they're talking about 6 million more? And we're gonna...
We do call them out. We call them wignats. We ban them from the chat. First of all, my show is not a live chat show. My show is a monologue. So it's not like, the show is not about policing my live chat or policing my comments. So, number one, we do call that out. I do call it out on my show. When people are saying, the Wignat acceleration stuff, I don't do it in a sanctimonious way where I say, oh, I'm so offended and this is gross and disgusting. But I say why it's ridiculous and not Christian. You know, after the Brenton Tarrant shooting, we had people in the live chat promoting that, and I said that's gross, that's not Christian, murder is wrong, and so on. But I'll say that it doesn't exactly help when no matter what you say or who you call out or whatever, we get the same fucking treatment. You know, it's like this guy says in the video. The first part of the video, he says, well, Nick Fuentes says he's not a white nationalist, but he is anyway. And Nick Fuentes says he's not alt-right, but they're the same anyway. And then in the end, he goes, why don't you call out the alt-right? Why don't you call out white nationalists? Gee, I don't know. It's almost like we get lied about by the media for 3 years. No matter what we say, no matter what we do, they don't engage with us. They continue to lie, even when we explicitly go against it, to no avail. It's almost like at a certain point, you just say, you know what? It's not even worth it anymore, because who's listening? But you know what I say by what I say. You don't need to call somebody out. You know, somebody says something in the live chat, whatever, they get banned. You get banned off YouTube if there's too much of that. But take it for, oh, because I don't call somebody out, some troll in my live chat who says 6 million more? Really? So everybody's responsible for what they don't call out in their comments or their live chat? What a stupid standard. How about you just go by what I say?
Roll at the end here some of the screen grabs from Nick's chat. Why don't you call those people out if you don't agree with it? I mean, that's basically all I've got here, guys. Nick can say he's not a white nationalist all he wants, but when he's going and giving speeches at American Renaissance, when he's got neo-Nazis hanging out in his chat, when he's doing Cookie Monster jokes about the Holocaust, I mean, I don't know what I'm supposed to get from this. These are all Nazi talking points. These are all the same types of culture.
This is all guilt by association. This is all guilt by association is what it is. That's why we don't call it out. Because it's, well, you know, again, it's nothing of what I've ever said. Because what I've been saying for the past 3 weeks is not ambiguous at all. Well, what am I supposed to believe? People that are in your chat, people that you went to speak in front of, and you made a joke. So what am I supposed to believe? How about you listen to what I say? How about you watch the show? And you'll find out. Why don't you call it out? Well, it's just like it's insanity, the double standard here. On the one hand, you're guilty by your associations, and no matter what you say, we're going to call you that. But why don't you call it out? But if you aren't, why don't you call it out? Do you not see what's happening here? Not see. Do you not, no pun intended, do you not see what's happening here?
And memes that neo-Nazi spread, that white nationalist spread, I don't see how this, despite some disagreement in tactics, I don't see how this isn't just alt-right 2.0. And so maybe if one of you can explain it to me, I'd love to hear it. All right, so that's it for today, guys. I know this video went on a little bit longer than they normally do, and I'm going to roll some clips here at the end of some things that Nick has said that kind of contradict, in my opinion, his claims that he's not a white nationalist. But, if Nick says he's not a white nationalist, if he says that he's just an American nationalist, fair enough. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I still...
13 minutes, and then at the end he says, well, yeah, whatever, he is an American nationalist.
The Groypers is a hate movement.
But then he says, so... maybe he is, but it doesn't matter because there's still a hate movement. You just can't win with these people. They're just so dishonest. The guilt by association, the context denial, the smears. They're just not honest. They're not honest. They don't want to understand what we're about. It's so bullshit, man. Why don't you? And that's the thing. That's the trick, though, is they pretend like they're engaging in good faith. That's what that is. They're pretending they're engaging in good faith. Well, I'm asking you questions. And, well, if you're not a neo-Nazi, then answer my little questions. Engage in good faith. But this is not in good faith. The whole video is in bad faith. Well, you say this, but it doesn't matter. Well, you're not like them, but it doesn't matter.
Care what disagreements they have with the Conservative Party. They can do that infighting all they want. I hope this is a wake-up call to the conservative movement that there is a problem in their community with radicalization. I hope maybe they start to look in ways that they have contributed to that and that they start to do something about that. So thank you for watching, guys. Have a good one. Faraday out.
I thought he was going to roll clips. What happened to that? All right, whatever.